What is going on, everybody? James Hancock here. I just got out of seeing Trap from writer-director M. Night Shyamalan, and this review is going to be largely spoiler-free because obviously whether you love his films, hate his films, or you're indifferent to his films, his kind of like his twist endings and that sort of thing, that's kind of his most famous gimmick that he likes to employ. So I'm not going to ruin that for anybody. However, I will have a few comments at the end of the video. I'll give you a verbal warning, and I'll also put a time code below, but I don't think I'll be able to call attention to those points without offering something that's kind of spoiler light or spoiler adjacent. But for the time being, let's just focus on the big picture. So overall, I'd say the first half of this movie is relatively watchable. I won't go so far as to say that it's good or even pretty good, but it's watchable. You can enjoy your afternoon at the movies, get in and out of the heat, enjoy the AC, or enjoy your evening at the movies. But like with many of M. Night Shyamalan's movies, you have a pretty simple hook or gimmick, which is more often than not a pretty interesting hook or gimmick, and then you have yet another gimmick at the end. Sometimes it's the final scene, sometimes it's after the credits, sometimes it's the second half of the movie, but he always has a twist, and that's usually where his movies get into trouble. Like, he's good at coming up with ideas for movies, very bad or very, like, he's less skillful or less adept at kind of, wrapping those things up and like tying a nice little bow on it and like sending everybody home with a smile on their face. The one big exception would be The Sixth Sense. I really enjoyed The Sixth Sense, but I feel like The Sixth Sense is one of those movies that you should never watch again, because as soon as you watch it again, you're like, oh, it's just like this is, it all falls to pieces upon closer examination. But the first time through, it's a pretty thrilling experience. But in the case of Trap, the premise is pretty simple, and this is the log line ripped straight from Wikipedia, where it writes, Cooper, a serial killer dubbed the Butcher, joins his teenage daughter Riley at a concert for pop star Lady Raven. He soon discovers that this event is a trap set by police to catch him. And I think if the movie had just stayed at the concert and we basically just see, like kind of the walls closing in on a serial killer, that would have been more or less an exciting, interesting movie, because I always enjoy seeing movies from the point of view of a killer, because even though we can recognize it is a bad thing to kill people and murder, etc. and so forth, especially if you're a serial killer doing it over and over. I think he's killed 11 people at this point when the movie gets started. But if you see everything from his point of view, as we do with this movie, at least for the first half, well, then you can't help but start to kind of not see things from his point of view, but root for him to a degree. And a million years ago, Alfred Hitchcock used to excel at these kinds of movies. Like, his personal favorite of his own movies was a movie called Shadow of a Doubt, where Joseph Cotton plays the Merry Widow Murderer. I think that's his nickname, but he basically kills little old ladies who have inherited a fortune from their dead husbands. He steals the money and he moves on, he tries it again. But most of the movie, not all of it, but most of the movie's from his point of view, so we can't help but root for Joseph Cotton, who's this very charming, likable, good-looking dude, etc. and so forth. And I think Trap is at its best when it tries to get us to look at things from Josh Hartnett's character's point of view. And Josh Hartnett, he seems to be, he's definitely in on the joke. Like, everything he says and does is a little bit over the top, but more often than not, it's because he's either lying to people, trying to persuade them, like, oh, I belong in this part of the stadium, or like, let me through here so I can go do whatever. Or he's lying to his daughter, and his daughter's just a big, giant, teeny bopper freak who just, wants to be there with her phone up the entire time, singing along with all the other girls as you are basically inundated with wall-to-wall pop tunes. And I should give a shout-out, but also maybe hand out a little speeding ticket to M. Night Shyamalan for casting his daughter. What is her first name? Salika. She plays Lady Raven. And I think this movie more or less was invented just as like a showcase for her talents. She wrote 14 songs for this movie, and pretty much all of them are played in their entirety. And if you're not into listening to music that's geared toward like 13-year-old girls, well, then all the music in this movie is going to be a pretty hellacious experience. And all appearances to the contrary, I've not been a teenage girl in quite some time. So for me, like, hearing those songs in their entirety, I was like, somebody please hand me a shotgun. It's time to blow my brains out. But as part of the musical backdrop for this elaborate trap that's been set for this killer, her music is convincing. I won't say I was tapping my foot. I won't say I was enjoying it. But at least it was believable that she could be, or at least it was plausible she could be a pop star that teenage girls would enjoy. And I think this movie's at its best when the father keeps trying to invent excuses as to why he has to take a break from his daughter and go gather some information or try to plan an escape route or whatever he's got to do to basically elude the police for 5 more minutes. Because you always get the sense that they're right on his heels, but at the last second he always manages to outwit them or outsmart them, and he's a very elusive, clever serial killer, which is a cool concept. And what helps the movie remain kind of engaging throughout the first half is that you've got two rival subplots going on in the background. Like, while he's trying to elude the police, You have one subplot involving his daughter and some teenage melodrama and some of the girls that have been mean to her at school. So you're hearing about that during the concert because all these girls are at the concert and some are friends and some are not. So you've got like this very disposable kind of innocent subplot, which kind of is like helps provide a little balance to the more serious subplot. But the real subplot is learning like all the little bits and pieces or little nuggets about this serial killer. Why is he the way he is? Who is he trapped in his basement in various safe houses and that sort of thing? And we're slowly like kind of through like a steady drip, giving little bits of information about the butcher, which, like I said, it kind of gets you on his side, or at least like gets you rooting for him. You're hoping that he'll elude the police for just like a few minutes longer, basically just so the movie can continue. Because if he gets caught, then the movie's over. But where this movie gets into serious troubles in the second half of the movie, and that's where I started to hear an old familiar sound of people laughing at the movie, not with the movie. And if you've been following M. Night Shyamalan's career for the last 25 years, I mean, when he came roaring out of the gate with The Sixth Sense, which is like, one of the biggest commercial successes of 1999, he followed that up with Unbreakable, which I do not like, but it does have some serious admirers, including Quentin Tarantino. And then he had Signs, which I also did not like, but it also had a lot of admirers and was a big success. Like at that time, people were declaring M. Night Shyamalan to be the next Steven Spielberg. I know that sounds ridiculous now, but in the early 2000s, it seemed plausible. Like if he can maintain this hot streak of hits, well, then he'll be, a giant of the industry. But then his cold streak emerged, which more or less lasted from The Village in 2004 through The Visit in 2015. I think those movies kind of neatly bookend his cold streak. I don't like either of those movies, but both of them have their defenders. But between The Village and The Visit, we had like the real like nadir of his career, like the real slog of his career, which included Lady in the Water in 2006, The Happening in 2008, The Last Airbender in 2010, and After Earth in 2013. 4 movies that were roundly ridiculed and rejected by most of the movie-going public. And I can remember for a while there, anytime there'd be a trailer for one of his movies, and it's like, a film presented by M. Night Shyamalan, or the latest from M. Night Shyamalan, people would start laughing and making fun of the trailer before it was even over. Like, his name was mud as far as moviegoers were concerned. And that was kind of the second phase of his career. And in the third phase of his career, initially it looked like he might stage a bit of a comeback. When he made Split and Glass back to back, I even was saying when I was reviewing those movies, M. Night Shyamalan's back. Like he's had his low point, now he's made up. He's going to be superstar director all over again. Then it all seemed to be over before it even really got underway again. So he made Old in 2021, which I did not see because I heard it was just so ridiculous. Knock at the Cabin, which I did review on this channel, which is worse than Trap, but not nearly as bad as movies like After Earth or The Happening. And now we have Trap. I would say Trap is better than Knock at the Cabin, definitely better than any of the movies during the low point. Not as good as movies like Signs or Unbreakable, and sure as shit not as good as movies like The Sixth Sense. So I'd say it's like kind of in the middle of his career. So depending upon to what degree you like or dislike his work, that'll kind of let you know whether or not you should slap down money to see this flick, whether that's at home or in the theater. But as much as I might be willing to trash a lot of the movies that he's made over the years, he gets the last laugh because after 25 years of filmmaking, I'm still watching his movies and talking about his movies. And if you are a commercial filmmaker, that is the goal. Like, can you find enough of an audience to go see your movies so that you can continue to make movies? And apparently M. Night Shyamalan, while he's not necessarily, he doesn't have the self-awareness to realize, stop putting yourself in movies because you're a terrible actor, and he has yet another terrible role in this. I think his worst role was in The Lady in the Water, but cameos are fine by a director, whether you're Alfred Hitchcock or Paul Verhoeven or whomever, like anyone who likes to pop up for like a half second in their movies. M. Night Shyamalan always gives himself a role, and I'm like, you need an actor for a role as large as this. And you're not an actor, you're a filmmaker. And you're a very successful filmmaker, so just lean into it and embrace it. But while he might lack the self-awareness to know, like, my endings are terrible and my acting is terrible, apparently he's a master at raising outside money. Like, I think he lines up all of his movies, all their budgets, all their box office, and basically makes a very compelling case that if you're going to make a bet in the movie biz, most movies do lose money. And so at a minimum, even though those movies might get made fun of, I think, if you look at his entire career, he is a successful filmmaker. So he does a good job of raising money, and then he'll go to a studio like Warner Brothers, find distribution. And that's why here we are 25 years later, he's still cranking them out. And if I wanted to zero in on why so many of his movies seem to kind of fall apart or become the objects of ridicule over time, I think he's got this weird combination of taking himself too seriously, but not seriously enough all at the same time, where like Trap's a perfect example. The first half of the movie kind of implausible, but you can watch it just because all the actors seem to be having so much fun in this kind of ridiculous concept of using a giant concert to trap a serial killer. Maybe just send like 5 people to his home and bust him there. Like maybe that'll be a better use of your manpower. But because everybody's kind of in on the joke and they're all kind of speaking in this kind of strange, hysteria-fueled, kind of campy, over-the-top manner, it more or less works. But then the movie asks you to take it like way too seriously, and it's hard to take a movie seriously and not seriously at the same time. You got to kind of pick one, or you got to be a master of like switching tones, because if you're good at switching tones, sometimes like having a little levity or a little a little strange campy humor can kind of give the audience like a break or some relief. But this movie's not hardcore enough where you need relief. It's rated PG-13. I'm amazed that it's rated PG-13. It could have been rated PG, and with a little finessing or editing, you probably could have gotten away with a G. But I guess for subject matter alone, it has to be PG. But this is a movie about a serial killer where there's like no real gore or violence. I mean, there's teeny tiny like bits of violence here and there, but nothing like you would see in like, an actual legitimate thriller or horror film or anything like that. You can take little kids to see this. Like the audience that would like the music of Salika Shyamalan, that audience would be perfectly at home watching a movie like Trap. And maybe that was the goal, once again, just to make his daughter make this movie a showcase for his daughter's talents. Because it's abundantly clear at this point in M. Night Shyamalan's career, he's trying to help his daughters get their careers up and running. And I did not see the movie The Watchers from his other daughter. I don't know how many kids he has, but he has a daughter named Shauna, who just graduated from NYU Film School, who directed her first feature this summer. Can't remember why I missed it. I think I was traveling. But the movie didn't do all that well, but he was one of the producers. It reminds me a little bit of what Francis Ford Coppola did for Sofia Coppola, where early on in her career, he would produce her movies, and now obviously she's more or less totally independent from him and can raise her own financing, blah, blah, blah. But M. Night Shyamalan clearly is trying to get his daughter's careers up and running. But the problem is, with the second half of this movie, and I'm going to be going into kind of spoiler-adjacent territory or spoiler-light territory, so I'll give you a soft warning, but at a certain point in the movie, suddenly his daughter, Salika, I wouldn't say she becomes the protagonist, but she becomes like the central figure, the central POV figure, where we start seeing things from her point of view. And while the butcher is still around and Josh Hartnett is still part of the drama, it breaks the internal tension or the suspense, or basically the overall construction of the movie, where suddenly we're asked, like the audience is being asked to see the story from a completely different point of view and root for a different character, which kind of gives you divided loyalties. It makes you feel like you're not necessarily on firm footing, or that the writer and director, M. Night Shyamalan, he's the only writer on this, that maybe he's not on firm footing, and maybe that the entire goal of this movie was just to show off his daughter's talents. But the problem is, as an actress, the kindest way to put it would be she's an inexperienced actress. But if you wanted to be harsh, you could say she can't act her way out of a paper bag. I mean, she was kind of atrocious. She's very pretty and she can sing, but that does not make you a leading actress where you can carry the weight of an entire movie, which she is asked to do for a huge chunk of the running time. And I think at that point the movie just gets broken, and that's when I started hearing people laughing at the movie and making fun of the movie. And then in the very end of the movie, like there's no real big, like massive twist like we see with a lot of his other movies. It just kind of fizzles and dies, because then we're asked to see the movie from yet another person's point of view, because actress, Alison Pill becomes increasingly the center of the movie. And it's really tough to get the audience to get invested in a new character like 2/3 of the way through, where suddenly it's like, well, wait a second, like, who the fuck are you? Why are you suddenly in the story? Like, and why am I asked now to like think of you as like the central character? It doesn't work. And it shouldn't be my job to fix Shyamalan's movies, but a very easy fix for the script would have been to have the daughter of the butcher do everything that the wife of the butcher does, like in the last third of the movie, because then you don't have to get invested with an entirely new character. And I know everybody loves pulling their hair out, having all those Nepo baby conversations these days, but the reality is, whether you're talking about the music industry or the movie industry or the publishing industry, any form of art or entertainment, like nepotism has been alive and well probably since the day of people like putting cave paintings on the wall for the first time. Like, I'm not going to roast him over the coals for giving his daughters opportunities. But I feel like if what he really wanted to do was show off Salika's talents, he should have just produced a concert film. Like, you don't need to give us like the bait of a murder mystery to kind of lure us in just to showcase all of her songs. Just like make that like your message front and center. Like, I'm proud of my daughter. I want to help her get her career going. Here's a concert of all of her latest music, blah, blah, blah. And it just seems like right now the movie's trying to kind of go in too many different directions, and it never quite works in any one direction. But M. Night Shyamalan has made much worse movies. I'm not in the habit of watching movies to make fun of them. I think that while there's a cynical side to me when I see things that I love becoming things that I don't love, then I can get very cynical and very bitter and very jaded. But I'm not one of those people that sits around like watching terrible movies saying, oh my God, that's so stupid, blah, blah, blah. I'd rather watch good movies. But hypothetically, if I were invited to a party where somebody said, we're going to have like a quadruple feature slumber party where we're going to take a lot of drugs, drink a lot of booze, and watch M. Night Shyamalan's worst movies and just see what happens. Like, we can debate which of his movies are the worst, but I think at a minimum, After Earth and The Happening and The Lady in the Water would be included. And probably The Last Airbender, and probably The Village as well. But you could actually make a pretty fun slumber party out of that scenario, like just watching horrible movies all night long and seeing who can make it to the end without, I don't know, checking themselves into an insane asylum. Like, I think M. Night Shyamalan's worst movies, I would make an exception to my rule of like not watching movies just for the sole purpose of laughing at their expense. Because like The Happening, if you've never seen The Happening, it is just the dumbest fucking movie ever made by a human being. Like, it is laughable that a director who, once again, like, he was being labeled the next Steven Spielberg, that he can make a movie as terrible and unwatchable as The Happening. But I think the reality is that M. Night Shyamalan's a very smart guy. I don't think he's necessarily a very talented director, but he's clearly very bright, clearly very successful, and I think he very wisely these days keeps his budgets very modest, and I think he basically engineers them to produce a tidy little profit. Everybody's happy, and then he moves on to the next film. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if 25 more years from now, if he's still alive, that we're still talking about, oh, like, what a shame. He came roaring out of the gate with The Sixth Sense, and he never lived up to his promise. It's almost like my talking points for his movies. I need to start keeping my notes for reviewing his individual movies, because I always end up kind of echoing and repeating some of the same points. And it's like, oh, these are all my usual points that I make about M. Night Shyamalan. So I'm not going to recommend that people hunt it down. I think the reality is, if I didn't have a YouTube channel devoted to film and television commentary, I would not have had remotely enough curiosity to want to go see Trap. But if you have a YouTube channel and you're looking for some content to discuss on your channel, I guess that'll be my case. Like, if you need something to review this weekend, apart from the director's cut of Rebel Moon on Netflix, which I'm going to make myself do tomorrow, starting at 3 in the morning, those double feature, or those two movies are available. I don't know how long it's going to take me to watch the two extended cuts and review them, but like, if you want something that might be better than Rebel Moon to review, go check out Trap. But if you don't have a YouTube channel, it's very tough for me to make a compelling case as to why you should watch this movie. But to be continued, this time tomorrow, I imagine I'll be reporting back on Rebel Moon, the director's cut, having much more savage things to say about that viewing experience. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up this video. Hope you enjoyed my commentary. If so, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, hitting the notification bell. Hope everybody has a great weekend at the movies. Hope everybody enjoys the Season 2 finale of House of the Dragon on Sunday, which I'll also be reviewing. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.